Hi guys! So I'm excited to be starting a new series for my nursing videos, and this series is going to be called the All About series. And basically what it is it's going to be a series all about certain nursing topics. So today's topic is going to be on HIPAA, but other topics might be all about titrating drips or all about nursing diagnoses. So stay tuned for my All About series. I'm going to try to release at least one video a week for my All About series, so just keep an eye out for those. So like I said, today's video is going to be all about HIPAA, and for those of you who don't know what HIPAA stands for, it stands for the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and I have never heard it be called by its real name. So for our purposes, we're just going to call it HIPAA. Everyone just knows HIPAA as HIPAA. So to dumb it down for us, HIPAA is basically a privacy act. It protects your patients, it protects you, it protects the privacy and the confidentiality of your patient's care. So there are a lot of factors that go into HIPAA, things you're allowed to do, things you're not allowed to do. So I kind of have a few basic tips for you about HIPAA, so that way it kind of just dumbs it down, makes it a little bit simpler, because HIPAA is one of those things that they drill in your head, but then they don't really cover it in full detail, at least in my experience with my nursing class. It's kind of one of those forms you sign that has a bunch of tiny print on it, and then you just sign your name because you're like, okay, yeah, I have to sign this, else I'm not going to be in nursing school, so you sign it anyway. You don't really read the fine print. So I'm going to dumb down HIPAA for us, so that way we all have a great understanding of what it is. The first part of HIPAA is that you are not allowed to discuss any part of your patient's care with anyone not involved in your patient's care. So in other words, your patient's doctors. Of course you can discuss your patient's condition with the doctors, or maybe they have a certain tech that's working with them and you're allowed to discuss certain parts of their care, such as they'll need glucose checks or things like that. But anyone outside of the patient's care, such as your fellow nursing friend who is working in the ER and you are in the critical care unit, you cannot discuss your patient's situation with your friend nurse because they are not directly involved in your patient's care. The next thing is you cannot discuss your patient's progress or diagnosis with anyone but the patient or legal guardian unless the patient says so. So in other words, if second cousin twice removed John calls the emergency room and says, hey, you have my second cousin twice removed Bill in your ER, I want to know what's going on, you cannot tell John what's going on unless you get permission from Bill, and then you can proceed forward from there. The next little part of HIPAA is that you cannot tell any of your family or friends or fellow acquaintances anything about your patients in which they could be identified. So for example, you cannot go home and tell your husband, I had a 63-year-old woman patient today. Her name was Mary Lee Jones. She had chronic kidney failure. She was only putting out urine at 10 milliliters an hour, and then her blood pressure started dropping, and her husband by the name of John Jones came in, and you can't be so specific. Yes, have I gone home and told my husband certain things about my day? Yes, but I make sure I'm not saying names or ages. I'm very general. I might say, I had a patient today who just wasn't doing so well and they were very sick, and it was stressful for me because I was having to call lots of the doctors and get different medication orders. That's very vague. That could be any person in any hospital in the world. So just be very careful. I actually had a situation in one of my clinical rotations where one of the patients, not that I took care of, but that was in the hospital, became a big news story, so to say, and I knew the reasoning behind the story, and the media was portraying it a different way, and I could not go home and post on Facebook and say, the media is lying, this is the true story, just because I knew. So that is an example of HIPAA where I did not violate HIPAA because I was not revealing facts about that patient or their situation. The next part of HIPAA is that you cannot discuss a patient's situation or case with a colleague in an area where it could be overheard by someone who's not part of the patient's case. So if you're talking to a doctor about the patient's case, but you are in the cafeteria where there are 200 other people eating lunch, who have no involvement in your patient's case, then that is not a good place to be discussing your patient and their situation. The last little part of HIPAA is to not read any part of a chart of a patient that does not belong to you. So if you're in the ICU and the room down the hall, room number 12, all of a sudden starts coding and it's, a bad situation, and you can't just go in the chart and start reading all about their history and stuff like that. Unless you are being involved in that patient's care, let's say they needed you to be in the patient's room helping with the code and running the code, and you had to look up some information about the patient that may help with running the code, then that's one thing. But just to be nosy and you're curious of, oh, why is this patient coding? You can't do that. Okay guys, so I hope that kind of simplified HIPAA for you. I know that this video actually helped me in kind of brushing up on some of the things about HIPAA. So stay tuned for more of my All About series on different nursing topics. If you guys have any suggestions, leave it in the comments below. And also if you have any other questions or comments about HIPAA, leave those in the comments below as well. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.